My husband died last year of a heart attack.
Do you have a son as well?
No, not anymore. He died.
When Sarah came to the hospital, she was the sickest of the sick. She was in what we call multi-system organ failure. She's the sickest 24-year-old that we've ever seen. I've never seen a case like that, and I really don't know what's going on.
So you've lost your husband, you've lost your son, and now your daughter is clinging to life. What are you expecting is going to happen? Do you think you're about to lose her?
I didn't know.
On Easter Sunday of 2012, the first in a series of mysterious deaths began in the Stouty family of Springfield, Missouri. The family of 6 seemed to be dying one by one. While fingers were initially pointed at alcohol abuse and mental health issues, one thing was similar in all these cases. They'd started getting sick, really sick, before suffering from fatal seizures and organ failures. The first death was a tragic loss. The second death rendered people frenzied. But with the third case, when 24-year-old Sarah Stouty was rushed to the hospital, it began to seem like something ominous that was bound to repeat itself, a pattern of deaths. So were these deaths mere coincidences? Or was there something dark behind all of this? Welcome to M7 Crime Story Time, where we cover solved, unsolved, and twisted cases from across the world. Today, we're looking at the disturbing case of the Stouty family. Springfield, the third most populous city in the state of Missouri in the U.S., is nestled in the heart of the Ozarks. Blessed with hills and cliffs and crisscrossed with rivers and lakes, Springfield is known for its picturesque landscapes and vibrant art scene. Unfortunately, its natural beauty often contrasts with the dark shadow cast by crime. With an average of 80 crimes per 1,000 residents, Springfield stands out for having one of the highest crime rates in America, surpassing communities from the smallest towns to the largest cities. Even in the face of these challenges, Springfield has a population of about 169,000. The people here are often recognized for their resilience and strong sense of community, creating a welcoming atmosphere despite all odds. And it was this tight-knit community that was the home of the Stouty family. Diane Elaine Stouty was born on April 5, 1962, in Springfield, Missouri. Determined to work in healthcare, Diane earned an associate degree in nursing from St. John's College in Winfield, Kansas, in 1985. But college was more than a place for education alone. It became the starting point of a lifelong journey with her partner, Mark Stouty. They began dating and soon tied the knot on December 28, 1985, when Mark was 34 and Diane just 23. Their family quickly grew with the arrival of their son, Sean, born on July 2, 1986, just 6 months after the wedding. Soon after that, Sarah entered the world, followed by Rachel in November 1990. Brianna completed the family as their youngest member, born 13 years after Rachel. Diane was happy on the surface, but behind closed doors, motherhood presented her with unique challenges. The eldest son, Sean, was diagnosed with autism and couldn't live independently, while young Brianna, still in 4th grade, was facing learning disabilities. Diane's other daughter, Sarah, had excelled in both high school and college, earning honors along the way, but was lately struggling to hold down a job and pay back her student loans. The family's finances were further strained due to Mark's minimal income, which he earned with odd gigs with his blues band, Messing with Destiny. Diane juggled multiple roles, both in the family and outside. A wife and a mother, she was also a church organist, a trained nurse, and the primary breadwinner, all of which took its toll. Despite these challenges, the family found respite in their shared passion for music, especially religious contemporary songs. Diane showcased her musical talents as a church organist, while Mark took center stage as the lead singer and guitarist of his band. Diane also had a soft spot for her middle daughter, Rachel, who she favored over her other children. She often showered Rachel with praise and shared her photos on social media. The turning point for the Stouty family came on Easter Sunday, April 8, 2012. 61-year-old Mark, who had no history of epilepsy, suddenly suffered 3 seizures that day. The last one went on for a shocking 45 minutes, and it was after this extended seizure that Diane realized he wasn't breathing. The police were called, and upon arrival, they declared Mark dead. Initial examinations suggested he died of natural causes. Diane explained that in the days leading up to his death, Mark had felt weak and barely able to speak. He refused to eat, spending most of the day sleeping. She said they'd refrained from calling 911 despite his deteriorating health because Mark insisted on avoiding hospitals. While there are no injuries on Mark's body, the police did notice something unusual. There was blood around his mouth. But before a foul play angle could be seriously considered, the police had a word with Mark's bandmates, who all corroborated Diane's claim that Mark's health had been declining and he'd even exhibited slurred speech.
Only one thing struck me so out of place: his skin color. His skin was actually a yellowish color.
Mark was known to be a heavy drinker, so the blood around his mouth was attributed to alcohol abuse. Just like that, the case was closed, and the patriarch of the Stouty family was gone. If life was difficult for Diane earlier, it became worse after Mark's passing. Even if he had no substantial earnings, he'd been contributing whatever he could and was a stay-at-home dad to their kids. But with him gone, there was all the more responsibility on Diane's shoulders. After Mark's passing, he was cremated, and no further investigation was conducted on his body. Diane received $20,000 from Mark's life insurance, which she used to move herself and the kids to a bigger house in a new neighborhood. Life as the sole parent and breadwinner wasn't easy, but Diane was managing fine. However, just 5 months after Mark's death, on September 2, 2012, the police were called to their house again. This time it was for 26-year-old Sean, who'd stopped breathing. Diane explained to the police that her son had been experiencing flu-like symptoms, along with diarrhea, nausea, body aches, and headaches for the previous 3 weeks. Because of her background as a nurse, she'd attempted to manage the symptoms at home, staying up all night to check on Sean. But money was tight, and Diane had to work. She said she'd left for her job at church and returned the next afternoon at 12:30 p.m. Upon returning home, Diane discovered Sean curled up on the floor, wrapped in a blanket, but he had no pulse. Sean had a history of seizures, and according to Diane, his most recent episode was on August 30th, just 2 days before his death. Just like in Mark's case, Sean had no injuries, but he did have a strange ring of dried blood around his mouth. But Sean didn't drink, so the cause of the blood puzzled the police. Despite the uncertainty, the Greene County Medical Examiner concluded that Sean's death was due to pre-existing medical issues. And again, the case was closed, and the Stouty family suffered the fresh loss of another member. However, more dark shadows were looming over the remaining family members. On June 9, 2013, Diane took to Facebook requesting prayers for her 24-year-old daughter, Sarah, who was in critical condition in the ICU. Diane's subsequent updates on social media revealed Sarah's troubling health issues, including organ failure and neurological damage. This series of unfortunate events began to raise some eyebrows. People questioned the eerie pattern of accidents and illnesses within the family. Just as suspicions of foul play started to surface, an anonymous tip reached the police, suggesting a possible connection between Sarah's health crisis and the deaths of Mark and Sean Stouty. Concerns intensified when those who knew the Stouty family noticed Diane's unusual behavior.
I said, "We just saw the coroner's van was here. Are you okay? Is everything all right?" And she said, "Oh yeah, my son died." She said it to me just like that. She said, "My son died." I just was shocked.
Despite being widowed and losing her son, Diane's social media was strangely upbeat. Instead of expressing grief, she went about her life as if nothing had happened, shopping, hanging out with friends, laughing, and enjoying pool time. One of Mark's bandmates from Messing with Destiny even recalled that Diane had acted like she was hosting a party at Mark's funeral. Even more troubling were allegations made by Mark's relatives. His brother, Michael Stouty, revealed that no formal services were held to commemorate Sean, and he only heard about his brother's death when another relative heard about it. Based on the tip, on June 13, 2013, the police headed to the hospital to inquire about Sarah's condition. The doctor revealed that Sarah had been admitted with flu-like symptoms and was found to be on the brink of liver and kidney failure. One of the nurses shared a troubling detail with the police. The nurse described Diane's visits to the hospital as brief and jovial, claiming that Diane would crack jokes and laugh with the hospital staff. Diane had even mentioned an upcoming trip to Florida the following week, which was strange given that her own daughter, Sarah, was critically ill. The police decided to revisit the deaths of Mark and Sean, focusing on one striking similarity. They both had a ring of blood around their mouths at the time of death. This prompted Springfield Police Detective Neil McCamus to bring Diane in for questioning.
I appreciate you being willing to come down and speak with us. We're very helpful on your part.
I'm trying to be.
All right.
Don't know what I can tell you.
Well, okay. We got the call about Sarah and her condition, but you say she's doing better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Diane initially insinuated that Sarah had poisoned herself because of her deteriorating mental health, but later corrected herself and stuck to "I don't know" responses.
Did she mention anything about, wanting to harm herself or
No.
nothing at all?
No.
Okay.
No. I know she had been not sleeping as good as she's been in the past, but other than that, I hadn't really noticed much change.
Okay.
But then, I don't know. It's so subtle sometimes, you just never know what's going on.
Sure. So you don't think it was pills? You thought maybe she could have got into some cleaners or something?
Yeah, because I know I have cleaners, and what else is there?
Yeah. What kind of cleaners do you think it could have been that she would have?
What do I have? I can't see her taking soap. Yuck. The general, everyday cleaner. I have some of that.
What would that be?
What's the name of it? Lysol?
Okay.
I know I have that, but I don't.
Could you even hurt yourself from soap or Lysol? Do you know? I'm not.
I have no clue.
No clue, okay.
I don't even think about.
Right.
Stuff
I've just
like
never heard
that.
of anything like that, so I
I
don't.
haven't either. It's like, but I guess, I don't know. I guess if you took enough, something would do something, but I've never, I don't know.
It didn't escape the detective's notice that Diane was not only making wild guesses about her daughter wanting to kill herself, she was also laughing frequently during the interrogation.
You're in the medical field? Is that?
I'm a nurse.
You're a nurse? Okay.
But I'm a cardiology nurse. I know hearts, but
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything from your knowledge, I know you say you deal with the heart and stuff, but from your knowledge, is there anything that you could think of that it could have been? Because obviously, from what we understand, you're pretty intelligent.
Yeah.
This is.
I try.
Yeah.
But I really can't think of anything. I mean, I don't know. Psych's not my thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
I understand that.
that's a whole different realm, and it's like, just the only thing I'm thinking in my mind is, unless it's an autoimmune something or the other, but I've never heard of that causing, basically she had a total body collapse.
Okay.
I mean, all her organs were trying to fail, and it's like, I don't know if anything.
Detective McCamus focused on building a strong rapport with Diane, hoping to make her open up about the strange deaths in her family.
Where are you a nurse at?
I work out of the house. I work for an insurance company.
Oh, okay. What do you do for
I
nurse for an
review-
insurance company?
Yeah, I review claims.
Oh, okay. Does she work anywhere?
No.
No.
She's been supposedly trying to find a job, but I don't think she's been trying that hard.
It appeared that Diane harbored some negative feelings about Sarah's inability to find a job, especially as Sarah had student loans piling up. This definitely hinted at dysfunctional dynamics and potential tensions within the family. With suspicions rising by the minute, the police requested additional tests on the hair and tissue samples that were preserved during Mark and Sean's autopsies. When the results came in, the news was shocking. There were traces of ethylene glycol in their bodies, a chemical commonly used as an antifreeze agent. But why had the initial autopsy not revealed this? It turned out that ethylene glycol was not part of the typical toxicology screening, and its detection required additional specific tests. But now the true picture was emerging. It was evident that Mark and Sean had succumbed to antifreeze poisoning. Could Diane, possibly overwhelmed, have poisoned her mostly unemployed husband and autistic son? However, this was merely a theory, and for the detectives, obtaining a confession was crucial.
What did they tell you about Sean's autopsy?
That he had a congenital kidney defect. That they found quite a bit of brain damage. I'd never heard of the word gliosis before. They had found where he'd had his initial stroke, and then there was evidence of seizures.
Okay. Because we've spoken with the medical examiner about that. And I guess when they first did it, they really didn't look too much into if there was any types of chemicals or anything at all in his system or anything else like that. But when we did talk to them, they were able to tell us that they, just like with all autopsies, if you're familiar with those, they take tissue samples and hair samples and all kinds of other samples, and they basically keep them for a while. And fortunately, they still have a bunch of his stuff, and so they're gonna do a bunch of tests on his stuff as well. Okay. So if his stuff were to come back with anything like that, something similar to maybe what Sarah's might come back with, how would you explain that?
I don't know. I really don't know. Again, it depends on what shows up. And
What do you think it might be?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Think there could be anything maybe malicious or suspicious involved with that?
I can't think of that, you know.
Would you be surprised if something like that came back?
Yeah,
Would you?
I think so. I think I would be surprised.
Okay.
I mean,
Why would you
I
be
never,
surprised?
Well, I never anticipated anything showing up, you know?
You never anticipated anything showing up. Why would you not anticipate anything showing up?
Because I really don't know what, how can I say this to make sense? I really don't know. Like, for instance, Sarah, I don't know what happened.
Right.
And as far as Sean, I'm just taking their word that that's what happened.
And I understand. I think their initial, because they didn't obviously go into a bunch of stuff, but now after Sarah's condition, and there was no autopsy done on Mark, as we know, but maybe from some samples that were taken initially, not the autopsy, but just because I know Mark had some substance on his face and things like that, and from samples there, is there any reason that from samples taken at the time of these that there may be some kind of correlation or some kind of link to anything that may be similar in those?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No,
And if there was?
I wouldn't know.
Diane must have felt cornered here with all these confrontational questions directed at her. As the interrogation went on, she admitted that each of her 4 children had life insurance policies worth $15,000. This was in addition to Mark's life insurance, valued at $20,000. Finally, police had a potential motive that could explain the poisonings: insurance payouts. But with no breakthroughs or confessions in Diane's interrogation, police turned to her 22-year-old daughter, Rachel Stouty, for answers. She was brought in for questioning.
Basically, what I kind of want to discuss with you a little bit, real quick, is just, I know that I know your sister Sarah's in the hospital, and they're trying to figure out, what's wrong with her. And from what I heard today, in the last couple of days, I guess her condition's improved quite a bit, and she's been moved, I think, to another room, and she's talking, I think, is that right now? And she's definitely better than she was a couple of days ago, obviously. And they're still trying to figure out what what actually happened to her, what was wrong with her.
After a brief discussion on Mark and Sean's deaths, the detective started talking about Sarah and how she'd been slacking off to note Rachel's reactions and responses.
And from what we understood from the hospital so far, we really haven't been able to determine how your sister got so sick from the hospital standpoint. Okay. Alrighty. But you did think it was kind of weird how everybody had these same flu-like symptoms, and dad dies, brother dies, sister almost died. I mean, came real close to. I mean, that's when we were called about this last week. We were told that she's probably going to die, and obviously, thank goodness, she's made a miraculous comeback. Yeah.
The detective was trying to establish a motive for the poisonings. He presented some of the evidence the police had collected so far, gauging Rachel's reactions.
But you found it kind of weird how they've all kind of had the same deals, and you're kind of wondering, I know you don't want to think about it, but you're thinking, is this something family, or mom hasn't said anything to you about what she thought it was, or?
Because she's telling me it was a bit different with Sarah, though, because, like, I mean, with Sean, there was the seizures. Dad was more of like a heart thing, was how she described it as. But Sarah's just out of the blue.
Just sick and throwing up, and then she's just basically unconscious. Is the way you put it. Okay.
I mean, they mentioned in the hospital something about brain bleeds, and so it's like, it makes me wonder so many things brain-wise, but I
could be seizures. I'm no medical expert, so I have no idea.
I mean, the seizure thing does go in the family, but I don't know.
Okay. But nothing heated between your mom and your sister about getting a job? No. Nothing like that? Okay.
It's more of gentle nudging.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, just kind of get you up to speed. About several days ago, we started receiving phone calls from some people that were kind of concerned about your sister Sarah and her condition, and how she just all of a sudden became very ill, and that kind of stuff. And we don't know exactly who these people were, but and then they were concerned, obviously, about the fact that your brother died and your dad died, and this was all sudden stuff, and some of the symptoms were kind of the same. And we obviously were brought in and started kind of doing our own investigation into it and talking with the doctors as far as Sarah's concerned. I know there was an autopsy done on your brother, but not on your dad. So we started putting some stuff together and started looking into things, and we started finding some things that just didn't look right, to be honest with you. I mean, just not adding up as far as, well, I mean, you're a smart girl, young 26-year-old, all of a sudden, flu-like symptoms, he's dead, 24, Sarah's 24? 24, young, throwing up, flu-like symptoms, dad's only 50-something years old. Started talking with the doctors and so on and so forth, and the doctors hadn't been able to confirm anything as of yet. They're still working on it, but they basically told us that what they were leaning towards and what they were thinking was the case is that your sister had been poisoned, and we're like, oh, okay, well, that kind of starts changing things now. But is that she poisoned herself? Is this a suicide attempt or anything like that, or what is it? But you never seen your sister say anything about a suicide attempt or wanting to harm herself, or?
She has, when she was in middle school.
In middle school, not recently.
No.
Nothing like that. And how about your brother saying anything like that, especially around the time of his death or anything, or leading up to that?
Not any sort of.
Not anything you took as a serious?
No, because a lot of times they would just say things, like attention-seeking kind of.
And this was back when they were younger, though?
Yeah.
This wasn't any time recent? You never got the impression that your sister or your dad or your brother had done anything to harm themselves? Did you ever get that impression, or did you get that feeling, or?
Dad, yeah. I mean, I could tell he was getting very depressed, but I don't know.
Okay.
In the meantime, Detective McCamus employed the clever strategy of using Diane's religious beliefs as leverage to apply pressure. He tried to seem sympathetic and understanding to make Diane confess, offering her motives for why all this could have happened. Diane did not talk until...
So
You have to understand that, Diane. You've got to tell me the whole truth, because you know that I already know. But you've got to tell me how all this started, when it started, why it started. Because you're going to want people to see that you're remorseful and that, you're sorry for what you did. And that you've asked for forgiveness. Diane, you knew that they were drinking antifreeze. Mm-hmm. You knew that. They didn't. We both know that. You knew, Diane, that they were drinking antifreeze because you were giving it to them.
And I didn't know what else to do. I really didn't.
I understand. Were you just like we talked, were you just at the breaking point?
Yeah. I didn't know what else to do.
Detective McCamus had a confession at last. When Diane was informed of her Miranda rights, she openly confessed to adding antifreeze to Mark's drinks and doing the same to her son Sean. She revealed she was fed up with her husband's guts and angry outbursts and wanted him out of the picture. She acknowledged that her son Sean, with a history of seizures and autism, was a significant burden to her. In her own words, she described Sean as more than a bother, more than a pest. Now that the police had Diane's confession, it was time to let Rachel know.
Brought your mom in today and talked to her, and after talking to her for a while, she finally told us what she had been doing. She had been giving your father small doses of antifreeze in his drinks over several day period. Same thing with your brother, and same thing with your sister Sarah. I know it's very difficult, and obviously we don't think that you or your sister had any knowledge, obviously, of that. Your mom is obviously she's torn up over the whole thing, and mentally she's beat herself up over it, I'm sure, every day. And like you even said, she's an emotional wreck at home. Her reasonings for doing this to your father basically was that just had enough of him. He was, as she described it, just not carrying his weight, not being a good father, not being a good husband. There was some infidelity stuff going on in there. There was some drug use going on in there. And she finally just got to the point where she couldn't deal with him any longer. And then unfortunately, after that, same type scenario kind of is the reason she describes for giving. She started giving your brother antifreeze in Coke and soda over a couple of day period. And then unfortunately, your sister, same situation, giving her antifreeze over a 2 or 3 day period, small bits of it at a time in her drinks, in her Coke. Basically, she says because wouldn't get a job, wasn't doing anything, felt like she was going down the same path as brother and dad, and was just going to be this complete burden to her and the family. And that's basically the reason. That's what she's giving us, is her reason for doing this. Did you even have any suspicions that mom was doing anything? I mean, I know in the back of your mind you said you didn't like to think about it, but these things, yours were kind of just all of a sudden deaths. Just take some time and
Rachel seemed shocked. Who wouldn't be shocked after learning that their mother was killing their family members one at a time? Now, for another spoiler alert. It was revealed that the anonymous tipper who informed the police was the family pastor, Jeff Sippy. He had a close relationship with Mark, meeting monthly for coffee and conversations. Initially, the pastor believed Mark's death was natural, but he became suspicious when Sean, a seemingly healthy young man, passed away without warning. More unsettling was Diane's complete absence of emotion. But more disturbing revelations were about to surface when Rachel was called in again for questioning the next day.
So she never told you specifically that she wanted to hurt your dad, your brother, or your sister?
No.
Did she ever say anything to you about maybe any of them being in bad health and that they were going to die in the near future or anything at all like that?
Yeah.
She did?
Like, as far as, like, Dad, when he was smoking and drinking, it's like, if he keeps up on this, he's not going to be around to make 80, 90.
Okay. Anything else? Or was that pretty much?
That's pretty much it.
Never anything about your brother or Sarah?
No.
Okay.
The shocking twist was that Diane had not acted alone. Her accomplice was none other than her favorite kid, 22-year-old Rachel Stouty. Police found Rachel's journal at the Stouty home, where she wrote about how her mother, Diane, had orchestrated the deaths of her father and brother.
Do you recognize this?
Yeah, I remember this.
Okay. What is that?
Little journal thing.
A journal thing? Whose journal?
Mine.
Your journal? So you wrote this then, is what you're telling me? Okay. You remember writing this then, is what you're saying? Okay. Take a look at this. Is that your same journal that we were just talking about that you were writing?
There was a dream that I had had. That they would die, but
This is your journal?
yeah.
You wrote this? And you remember writing it?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get to read it all? Got some questions for you, Rachel.
Okay.
Some questions that you need to be honest with me about. So you said you'd been having some dreams about them dying. And you told your mother about this. What did you tell your mother?
That it would be quick. That it'd be easy. That they'd be to heaven soon and we could move on. I didn't know when she bought the antifreeze, but I knew she'd been doctoring drinks.
Rachel had been fooling the detectives so far, but now that solid evidence in her own writing was in front of her, she couldn't manage this facade any longer.
So when did the plan to kill Sarah come about?
May, June.
May or June? And so why was it decided to kill Sarah?
Other than the fact that she basically lived in the back bedroom and didn't, have any gumption to get a job, I'm not certain. Mom probably has her own issues with her.
What about you?
She's annoying, yes, but I don't know.
Did you guys fight a lot?
Yeah.
Your mother told me you guys fought all the time. Is that true?
Yeah.
Is that why you wanted Sarah gone? Why did you want Sarah dead?
Back in middle school, she would touch me. I mean, she grew up later when she got on the medicine, but she still argues. She still has really inappropriate jokes. She really had no purpose.
No purpose in life?
Not really, no.
Okay.
The detectives had enough evidence now, but they found yet another note the next day. It was a handwritten piece of paper in Rachel's purse that said, "Only the quiet ones will be left. My mother, my little sister, and me."
While we're on the topic of journal stuff, I guess, after we arrested you, when we had to search your purse, we found your new journal entry, some of the stuff that you'd written in there, and I've got some of that talking about how you felt, kind of bad about Sarah's pain because you helped basically put her in the position she was. And so did you feel bad then? Because you wrote that you felt a little bit bad about knowing that you helped put her in that much pain. So did you feel kind of bad about that, or?
It's harder when you're watching in the ER. She would scream out. I don't like screaming.
Okay. So that was harder. It would have just been easier for you if she just would have died and not having to see all that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you wrote a little poem at the end of that. Do you remember that? How did that poem go?
I read about the nurses a little bit.
Right.
And it's like, they make you feel stupid.
Mm-hmm. You remember at the very end of that writing what you wrote about?
Something to the effect that I know what's happening.
Something like this. It said, "Once upon a time there were 6, now there are only 3. Only the quiet ones are left. My mom, my little sister, and me." When did you write that?
A little bit after she was put in the hospital, when she was still on the ICU floor.
You still thought she was going to die at that point?
Yeah.
Okay, because you said you were really surprised that she pulled through.
Mm-hmm.
Do you regret not waiting a little bit longer before you guys took her?
If it would have been a little less painless, yeah.
A diary entry dated June 13th, 2011, indicated that Rachel had foreseen her father's murder a year before it happened. One of her later entries read, "It's sad when I realize how my father will pass on in the next 2 months. Sean, my brother, will move on shortly after. It'll be tough getting used to the changes, but everything will work out." It was also revealed that after Sarah's killing, there were plans to murder 10-year-old Brianna due to her learning disabilities. In further cross-questioning, Diane confessed that Rachel had assisted in planning and executing the murders. They had specifically chosen an online brand of antifreeze without a bitter aftertaste to ensure their victims would not detect it. This admission revealed the level of premeditation in the murders. Rachel had initially felt that Sean's death was unjust and he should have instead been placed in assisted living. She also didn't want Sarah to die in the house like Sean had, which is why Sarah had been taken to the hospital. This ultimately saved Sarah's life. But Rachel still saw her mother Diane as the only one who truly understood her. Rachel considered herself the golden child and envisioned a future with just her mother. Both Diane and Rachel were convicted on 2 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of first-degree assault. In May 2015, Rachel pleaded guilty to all charges, but later, in an appeal, she claimed that her fear of men was not accommodated during the legal process, leading to miscommunication, coercion, and mental duress. She expressed discomfort being alone with a male detective during interviews. Despite all that, Rachel accepted a plea deal in May 2015, agreeing to serve life in prison with a chance of parole in exchange for testifying against her mother. She was eventually sentenced for the second-degree murder of Sean and Mark. Diane pleaded guilty to first-degree murder of Sean and Mark. Diane's daughter, Sarah, who endured severe long-term neurological and organ damage from the poisoning, read a statement during the court proceedings. She said,
"I forgive my mom for what she did to me. But she not only took away my dad and brother, but she took away my lifestyle and motherhood and my independence."
In January 2016, Diane received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Both Rachel and Diane have since appealed to vacate their pleas. But this was not the end. On February 25, 2020, Diane was interviewed by 2020, a television program while in jail, where she claimed innocence. She alleged that Mark had been a drug addict and alcoholic and denied having poisoned him. The public and media expressed strong disapproval of Diane's favoritism towards Rachel and her perception of her disabled children as burdens. Diane's actions align with characteristics of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Her apparent lack of emotional response, her focus on her own needs, and the manipulation of medical situations for attention are indicative of this syndrome. Additionally, Diane's selective favoritism towards Rachel suggests a distorted caregiving pattern consistent with the syndrome. However, we can't provide any diagnosis for her based on just a few clips. Although Sarah survived, she suffered permanent organ and neurological damage due to the antifreeze in her system. Despite being on the dean's list during her university years, Sarah now needs a guardian and resides in an assisted living facility. She still maintains a Facebook profile with details about the murder case and a banner photo of her father Mark performing in his band Messing with Destiny. Diane's youngest daughter, Brianna, who was just 10 years old at the time of Sarah's poisoning, was placed in foster care with a new identity. Do you think Diane suffers from Munchausen syndrome by proxy? Why do you think Rachel helped her mother in these murders? Please let us know your thoughts. Also, if you have any case suggestions you'd like us to cover, please mention them in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time,